May, could you please call the roll? Here?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here.
Here.
Thank you. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, that'll take us to approval of minutes from the last meetings.
Move to approve.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, that passes. Communications, we have quite the stack of material to look through. Some of this arrived pretty late this afternoon, so I'm going to ask that the board members, maybe over the next couple of days, go through these items as you can. That's going to take us to persons to be heard. We want to give everybody an opportunity who wants to speak tonight a chance to do so. So just a couple of things before we get started. When you come to the podium, please tell us your name. Please address the board, not the staff. We are going to try to keep the comments to about 3 minutes. When we get to 3 minutes, May will ding the bell, and that'll be your opportunity or your heads up to kind of summarize your statements. After each speaker, if any board members have questions, they'll have an opportunity to ask. Just for clarity's sake, so everybody knows where we're at in the process, no rates have been changed yet. We had a study done by a company called Northern Economics that was presented to this board and then to the city council. The staff gave us a PowerPoint presentation to summarize the contents of the rate study. The only thing that the city council has approved to date is an ordinance to allow harbor rates to be set by resolution, but it hasn't changed any rates. We're actually in the middle of that process. The survey that a lot of you folks filled out and meetings like this are the most important part of that process. After tonight, staff will take into consideration, the board will take into consideration, and the council will take into consideration the comments that we get from you folks. And then I think it's going to be the city council meeting of December 12th, where this will be on the city council agenda. And then we'll see where it goes from there, if a decision is made, and if so, where we go with rates. So why don't we get started? So the first speaker is Ty Walker.
Hello, I'm Ty Walker, resident of Borough. We live out in North Tongass. I'm here to address the harbor fee, specifically the launch permit fee, because every time the harbor fees go up, the launch permit fee goes up. Some years ago, I was told by the harbor master that the launch permit fees raise about $50,000 for the city. That at that time, it was $50 for an annual permit. I'm guessing that means there's 1,000 people that buy a permit. Last year, it was 60 some odd dollars. So it probably gives the city 60 some odd $1,000 for the launch permits. I've had my boat for 25 years. I can remember when there wasn't a fee to launch your boat. The state put in the second ramps out at Mountain Point and Knutson Cove. They put in the outhouses in the early 2000s. And as soon as those went in, the city started charging the launch permit fee. The money used to make those improvements, my buddy worked for Fish and Game. He was in charge of the project, came from everybody buying a fishing license. That's what paid for the second ramps and the outhouses. I'd like to think that I'm an observant fellow, and I notice things. I haven't seen a nickel put in any of the ramps in the last 20 some odd years since they've been charging a fee. It's my contention that the launch fee is an unjust fee paid by a few who follow the rules. We pay this fee, but we get no service. And I'm gonna give you dozens of examples of what's going on out there. There's zero enforcement of the rules out at these launches. It's a free-for-all. And if it's gonna be a free-for-all, which it is, I think it should be free to launch your boat and retrieve it. Some inequities of this launch permit fee: kayaks are exempt. Why are they exempt? My guess is because there's not a mechanism to go check to see if they got a sticker on their trailer. That's the only enforcement I've ever seen out there. Watching the harbor department, they go out there and see if you've got your launch permit sticker on your trailer. If you don't, you get a ticket. Another inequity I see, and I see a lot of people in here, they've got big boats, fishing boats, and they've got personal boats. Well, if you've got a stall in the harbor or your big boat, you get a launch permit that you can give to your kids, you can use on your little boat. This is apples and oranges. I don't know why they're getting a launch permit free sticker for free. So I have all these pictures and I could send them to you guys if you want, but you know, this first one, it's Knutson Cove. There's posted there as you pull in, there's an upper lot where it's designated for people to park their boats and trailers, empty trailers attached to their vehicles. It's posted, trailers must be attached to a vehicle. It says no overnight camping, motor vehicle, motor homes, no campers. Posted vehicles only, no boat trailers. That's on the lower lot. So here's a picture of a guy parked with his boat trailer in the lower lot. Here's a picture, guy parked his boat trailer. Have you ever been up to the Civic Center on a busy night? You know, people are parked everywhere. You know, we enforce that. So this guy's parked in a no parking zone. Never seen the harbor department write a parking ticket. Here's the guy. He's back down the ramp. He's got a couple dozen boards on his rig. He's loading them into his boat. Did he buy a launch permit? I kind of doubt it. My assumption is he probably lives out of Mosier Bay. He bought a launch permit 5 years ago and never launches or retrieves his boat. Here's a commercial operator. They have backed their cargo trailer down. They got a landing craft and they're moving supplies. They're not launching. They're not retrieving their boat. They're loading. Okay. I've never seen the harbor master enforce anything like that. There's a commercial operator. They have their own docks. I kind of doubt that they got a launch permit. Here's a picture. Somebody else was, man, this car's parked in a no parking zone. That wasn't me, but somebody wrote, tow this car. Never seen a ticket on it. More cars parked illegally. Postage posted out there at the Knutson Cove, you know, trailers must be attached to a vehicle. This picture was taken July 11th of 2023. You see there's 3 trailers that are just kind of out there for storage. They're not attached to vehicles. 2 of them look like they're junkers. This one was taken last night. Those 2 trailers are still out there, still taking up space, still junk.
Can you summarize soon, sir? Just soon.
I can't, but so, you know, here's somebody camping. There's no enforcement. Here's somebody, they got their firewood. They blocked off that whole section of the ramp. You can't load, can't unload. Campers out there stay for weeks. Parking's a premium. If there's no enforcement, if you're gonna let it be a free for all, you shouldn't charge. Here's another, you know, commercial. We got an ordinance that says you can't work on your vehicle on the city property. Here's the commercial operator. They're working on their boats. And it's just as bad. All these pictures are stuff that goes on right in front of the harbor department. I know that the police department has given the harbor department parking tickets for them to issue. They don't issue them. And they're guilty. There's a rig of theirs that's been parked in a spot that's marked for vehicles with trailers only, and it's been there for 3 weeks. It's there tonight. So, you know, I showed you, you know, the tour buses park up there in that lot. The tourists use the bathrooms there. Perhaps if there's another funding source that we could use to the head tax money for to take up and just give the 1,000 residents that launch and retrieve their boats it for free. Thanks.
Any questions for Mr. Walker? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Severson.
Thank you, Bob Severson, 3817 Alaska Avenue and harbor user. First of all, I'd like to thank the board and commissions for their services to the city of Ketchikan. I'd like to thank staff for taking care of harbors. I'm not opposed to a rate increase, but I am opposed to the rate increase that was put together in the study that you had done and even in the ones that were proposed to the council. So as I look at it, and I can only speak for my 30-foot stall that I have, I pay $1,034.40 a year for that stall. In the study, they listed 17 whatever, and if you're comparing it to other harbors, it's a yearly rate, not a 6-month rate. So make sure that you can correct that so it's apples to apples. So if you raise the rates 15% in the first year, that brings that 1,034 up to 1,089. And with the harbors that you compared to in the study, we're within $1.16 on an average with those harbors. So that first rate of 15% puts us on par with other harbors that you compared us with in the study throughout Southeast Alaska and some of the Prince William Sound. In 2025, if you went to another 15% raise, we would be $381 higher than the average harbor. So you're banking money above what would be for normal maintenance or what other harbors are doing. And then if you use the third year, that would be $628 a year over harbors on an average. We would become, as far as a 30-foot boat is concerned, a 30-foot stall, the most expensive harbors in the state of Alaska. So the rates aren't that way because you have a flat rate system. I would suggest that you do the 15% because I'm in favor of a rate that maintains our harbors and allows our harbor department to do the stuff that they need to do. But I would suggest that you go to a menu rate similar to what Kodiak has. Other harbors, you go to any harbor in the lower 48, when you pull in, it's by the size of your vessel. Petersburg has a rate system that's by variable boat size, and so does Wrangell. So I think that would be a worthwhile thing to look at rather than just continue to raise the rates in the second and third year. Also, you propose a cost of living raise. If you were to use the $60.74, that was after the 3 years within the study, in a 10-year period, you'd go from $60.74 to $75.19 per foot. And right now I'm paying the 34. 48 from the boat. So I do agree that we need some kind of a raise, but I can't agree with as large a raise as we have. When I talked to the harbor department about the capital projects that are proposed, and I asked them, what did they use to come up with? Did they do a marine study or anything? They said, no, we just put a list together of what we thought might be warranted. And I used the floats, I'm on the floats, and I don't see any indication that our float isn't necessarily, as they have it in the study, should be slated for replacement when it can be repaired and maintained. I understand harbor infrastructure is complicated. I understand rate structures are complicated. I'm afraid that with the proposed rates and the structure that you have, that you're going to force people to make a decision whether they can afford to have a boat, or they choose to have a boat. So the menu rate, when you own a house, your taxes are based on the size of your house and your property. And it wouldn't be fair to do a flat rate. Utilities aren't billed by a flat rate because some people use more power than others. A skiff, a 16-foot skiff in the harbor, uses less infrastructure than a 40, 50, or 60-foot boat in the harbor does. So it just makes sense that you have a variable rate to put the cost centers as compared to the users. And so that would be my suggestion, is to go back and take a look at it for the next round to see if a variable rate structure works better than just a continuing flat rate increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Severson? Thank you, Bob. Aaron Marsden. Come on up, sir.
I'm probably gonna be more than 3 minutes, but how high are you guys planning to raise this? I barely heard about these rates today. So can you clarify for me how much you're planning to raise these? And are you planning to give any amnesty towards, say, liveaboards or anything of that nature? Cause I live on my boat. I don't hear anything at all about them raising property taxes or nothing in the borough. So why is my home being taxed or being charged? Why am I being charged double than someone who's renting an apartment? Why do I have to give up my home and none of you? Why?
So just
Can you answer this?
just real quick, brief answer to your question. The city commissioned a harbor rate study from an outfit called Northern Economics. Long story short, they came back with a fee structure that says that for the harbors to remain viable, the rates would need to go up a total of 68%. Our staff looked at that and said, well, there's no way we can do that all at once. They came back to this board and the council with a suggestion that we consider 15% per year for 4 years.
I still say that's unreasonable.
Okay.
That doesn't keep up with cost of living, and many of these businesses in town that run through boats, they're not gonna be able to keep up with that at all. There's just no way. And honestly, I'm kind of wondering who did that survey, and can I ask them to do a drug test so we know what drugs they were doing while they came up with this?
Let's keep it polite. Actually, I have an extra copy. Would you like a copy of this?
I would love a copy, and I will read it, and if possible, I'll be up here again in a little bit with maybe a little calmer, but I'm pretty sure I can speak for all the liveaboards, and there are dozens of us in between all the harbors and towns that absolutely are not having this at all. A rate increase, that's fair, but 68% for, especially for someone like me who just bought their boat, this is equivalent to when someone buys a home, you just say, screw you, we're gonna raise the rate by 68%. No, I don't think anyone on this council or anyone who made this survey went through that at all, so no. Absolutely not.
Any
I'll
questions?
back up in a little bit.
It's one bite at the apple tonight, sir. That's it. So if you have anything else you want to add real briefly, please do so, but this is it.
Well, I can tell you that with all the people, all the fishing vessels and all the tour vessels that come in with these rate increases, it's no longer profitable, so you will probably lose all of those. Or at least a pretty good chunk of those. Lost revenue is something you're probably gonna look at, and I don't care. So this is a whole lot of crap, and what drugs was anyone on to think that the people who are voting for you want this? No. I'm gonna sit down now.
Okay, thank you. Melody Scott?
Melody Scott. My address is Float 10, Stall 12, at Bar Harbor North. So we've kind of been picking through the numbers and really analyzing things a little bit this week. And the way it's presented, it's going to be 15% over 4 years. I'm reserve mortgage, so I'm not taking the hit that open mortgage individuals are taking. Honestly, if I were open mortgage, I would already be going to Wrangell. I couldn't afford to live here open mortgage. I'm on a fixed income. So it's really not 60% because the way they're accumulating it, it's really a 74.5% increase for a reserve mortgage spot. Unfortunately, my income is not going to increase 74.5% over 4 years. Not gonna happen. So with that said, I just feel like that is a very large and substantial increase. And I really feel that you guys really need to look at what you're really proposing. Because from my perspective, if you're going from one of the most reasonable harbors in Southeast Alaska to the most expensive harbor in Southeast Alaska, is the city and the harbor department ready to step up and be the best harbor in Southeast Alaska? Because if you're going to charge that kind of money to your locals, we don't want tripping hazards. We don't want holes in our concrete. We don't want to have to go shovel our own paths when it snows because the harbor department doesn't. We're going to expect the harbor department to do those things for us. Customers from outside, they're going to expect better amenities. If you're going to raise the prices on these commercial fishermen and some of them, they're going to expect better amenities. And that's just the bottom line. I mean, if you think about it, if you go to the most expensive hotel, you expect the best of the best. Well, you are a hotel or a vessel, and they're going to expect the best. So you better make sure you're ready to step up to that plate when you make this decision. I got another couple bullet points. I'll keep it brief. We leave for a couple weeks at a time, and we've been asked by the harbor to let them know when we're going to come home, so they can rent our stuff. I don't have a problem with that if they would make sure that my steps don't end up in the harbor, that my steps don't end up broken because the people using my slip have put them up on the bull rail. We need our steps to get off of our vessel. We cannot get off of our vessel safely without them. They move them. Anyways, we have come home and somebody's in our spot. We've been asked to sleep somewhere else for the night, have to untie and go in our spot the next day. You charge me 90% over the next 7 years, I'm not going to be accommodating. You're going to find who's in my slip and they're going to move. If I can't notify you because your VHF only works about at the Marine, at about the Coast Guard to Ward Cove, and you're not there on Sunday to answer my phone that I've had a generator problem and I'm coming home early, again, not my problem. Get them out of my slip. My other question and concern is if the harbor, and you guys can answer this, I don't know, if the harbor maintenance department goes and works on a ports maintenance project, who pays those wages and fringes? That should be coming from ports, not harbors. And I don't know if that happens, but if it does.
It does.
And the ports pay for it?
Yes.
Okay. And I will leave it at that because there's a lot of people who want to talk. Those are my main concerns. Thank
Any
you.
questions for Ms.? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Vern Scott?
Good evening. Thank you all. Appreciate what you guys are doing for our community. So I got a little bit here as we've been going over the proposals, been to the last couple of meetings. I want to thank you all for getting the notice out to the public. Be it short for some people, be it some of us have known for a month that this is in the works. Well, I've been in enough meetings in my past that if you don't get right on board at the first, you're going to miss your opportunity, and this is why we're here. Made a statement, so if you'll bear with me, I'll try to read most of it off. The city is not allocating, enough funds to the harbor department. With all the increased taxes and fees and that have been approved by the council, where's the money being allocated to ports and harbors or just harbors? I feel that we have a lot of visitors that come and do shopping. We got the city doing an increased sales tax. Why isn't the harbors department collecting some of those sales tax? I mean, they're parking, they're shopping, they're getting back on their boats, they're leaving. Okay, so according to the study, my mortgage rate pays 80% of the harbor. I mean, it's my funds that cover the harbor allocated money. So, I'm opposed to a complete increase the way it's presented. I understand that we have a need for an increase, whether it be a 15% and then a 2% after that. That's one thing. But to up my mortgage 15% this year or next year and 15% the year after, okay, well, you're just doubling and doubling and doubling. For the most part, that's how I see it. Granted, you know, Wrangell has changed some of their fees, which now for my 60-foot boat to go to Wrangell, I'm not gonna stay there very long either because they changed their daily rate. So according to the proposal, the daily rate here doesn't change. And maybe I'm mistaken, but again, you got the traveling fleet coming through every summer. They want to tie up 4 or 5 days, want to do shopping, sightseeing. Your rates aren't reflected on those people. So, again, I want to thank you. I want to ask everybody to go to the council meeting and let everybody know that we need to be on the front of the end of this to come up with a solution. So again, thank you.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Scott? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I forgot to mention at the beginning, for those of you who have friends, family that couldn't make it tonight, this meeting will be on YouTube tomorrow. The city will post it so that people that couldn't make it tonight can have a peek. Don Petrie.
Don Petrie, PO Box 1495. I'm in agreement with a lot of the people here. We do need a rate increase, not that much. If you look around, inflation's everywhere. My paycheck's not gonna inflate 15% in a year. So, I mean, it's not fair to the liveaboards. It's not fair to the weekend warriors. I don't think it's fair you guys are having this tonight when the dive fleet is out. They're a big part of the harbors too, you know, and they can't be here because they're diving today and tomorrow. So I'm gonna be moving on to my boat. Hopefully, we'll see how this meeting goes out. I was looking at the capital improvement that they had set, and I'm trying to figure out how come they think they need new vehicles every couple of years. I mean, I drive a 2000 Dodge truck. It's 23 years old. Why do they have to have a new car every 5 years? You know, if we have to tighten up our belts, they should be tightening their belts and prioritizing things. I mean, the city and the borough, they get together and they put a list together of what they think is priorities between Northborough, Saxman, city, and then they present that, and then they go from there. Why isn't that happening here? You know, there's some things that need to be taken care of. I mean, we do need better security. Them moving the homeless shelter over by the VFW, what's that gonna say to everybody's boats? I mean, look what happened to American Legion. You know, boats aren't far. They got gasoline on them. They got diesel. They got propane. We don't have a fireboat anymore. What's going to happen? You know, that can be solved. Build gates, key cards. You pay your mortgage, you get a key card. Gets you through that gate. Keeps the riffraff out. You know, if you go down south to some other harbors, they have key cards for laundry, for showers. You know, and you're going to charge us as much as some of those harbors down south? Like the lady said, if you're going to put us that much money, be the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert McRobert?
Robert McRoberts, 419 Misty Mountain Road. I'm gonna go a little bit different on this whole thing. It's like COVID came to town. Town's struggling. We've all had business losses and stuff. I had to shut down my business. One of the things, it's like I wasn't ready for retirement yet, but it's like I grew up here. I grew up on fishing boats. I've been out on the water. My dad had boats. We've all been in the harbor. And the harbor life has always been a good thing for us because it was either commercial, we worked at it, or it was pleasure because everybody that works in our community has the need for pleasure once in a while. It's like, man, we got to have a boat to get out and play on. But the last few years, it's like, okay, I sold my house and I bought my boat and I had dreams that I'm going to go out and I'm going to do the things in our community that needed to be done. It's like, I haven't gone up the Unique River. I've always wanted to do these things. So that required that I needed to buy a boat. So I buy a boat because I can't do my business anymore. There's no industry. You don't see backhoes and dump trucks flying up and down the road like we used to and stuff like that. Our community is really freaking hurting. And so I buy a boat. Then, okay, I didn't realize, okay, I get kicked out of the stall. So now I'm in long-term marriage here, and it's like, or, resident marriage or whatever you want to call it. I'm tied up to the dock on a monthly rate. And I pay this thing. It comes to about like $6,500 a year that I pay in mortgage to tie that boat up there. I've been restoring it. I've been working on it, been making it so that I could get out there and enjoy it. But when you see these rates that they got for others, I know you guys didn't do it. It's like, and most of you I know are not even for this. But it's like, we can't keep raising the rates on the community that is getting hurt really hard. If we can't get our docks funded from these cruise ships that are coming in and overwhelming our docks, I mean, my boat's tied up at City Club. I watch hundreds of thousands of people walk by it every day. And if we are not funding our docks from that and giving our residents a break that are taking the impact on all these people, it's ridiculous, man. I mean, sure, everything goes up. 5% rate. Go there. Don't go no higher. I mean, because I know everybody needs to freaking pay the bills and everything else, and everybody's costs are going up. But we need to just make sure that we don't throw people out of the harbor, because there's boats down there in the harbor that I don't even know how are still floating. Where do you think they're going to be? They're going to be on Rosa Reef. They're going to be tied up on a beach in some bays. We're going to have to clean up for those things. And it's just like, it's a never-ending thing. I mean, the fishermen can't afford to tie up their boat, whatever, because we see a lot of people like that. And some of you are fishermen. It's like, we can't keep raising our rates like this. This is dramatic. It's like, oh, I thought life was going to be easy when I retired. Going to be short. That's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gail Robbins,
I didn't want to speak.
you didn't? Okay.
Said the world feeling more importantly.
Simeon Winrod?
I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
Station.
Josiah Winrod?
I'll pass the same. I think everybody's saying what I was gonna say.
Steve Nelson?
Same.
Cody Lathrop?
Same.
Dave Hashigan?
I want to thank, as a former member of the Port and Harbor Board, and when we had a commission
port commission here. I was one of the port commissioners with Cliff Terrell and Al Ludwig from the mill. I'd like to thank you guys for what you're doing tonight is the right thing. Getting public input before you make a recommendation to the council. I'm not for a rate increase, but things cost more money. People get paid more money, so you gotta come up with more money. So what are some of the ways when we rebuilt Float 9, we went for a state grant, and of course it's a matching grant, and we had to match it with raised rates. I think it was 7% a year for 4 years. It come up to, supposed to be 35, but it really comes up to 41% rates. So at the time, I had a good friend that was a grant writer, and I says, there's got to be some other grants around, you know, for harbors. We're not the only town. There was 5 federal grants that had been applied for. 3 of the 5 didn't require matching funds. Grant, I mean, that's free money. And when it was suggested to the harbor staff at the time, administration, they're just a lot of work, those federal grants. Well, it's a lot of work for us to pay 41% more mortgage too, the whole fleet. So I would suggest the board look at federal grants, get a grant, hire a grant writer for, you know, they don't cost much, and let's look for some federal grants to help do some of these capital projects. I'm not against a small raise, but, and one of the things you could do to really help, we didn't do it, is when you put in the paper you're having a harbor board meeting, put the agenda in there. So if there's something that interests somebody, they can go to the board meeting. We rarely had anybody at a harbor board meeting when we had it down to the deal, because people didn't know what we were doing. And they do it for the city council, borough assembly, planning and zoning, they put the agenda in there. So I would suggest that. Now, we have a head tax, but it's for the tourism or visitor industry, but it's really closely, it has to be tourism orientated to what you spend it on. But in the harbors, we probably have more tourism business in charter boats alone than there is all downtown. So look at the head tax and see what we can do to maybe use that, some of that head tax money in the harbors. Another thing that it's always puzzled me, but we're a different entity kind of, is if any of us have electrical lines fixed on our street or the water lines fixed, and it takes a bond, which we just did for the water in the city, the system as a whole pays for that bond. But in the harbor, only the harbor people pay for it. Yeah. And we should look at that. And that was from the old days when the state owned the harbors and the city just run them, but we own them now. So they are a part of the city. They're open to anybody to walk down there, whatever they want to do. So that's what I would look at. I'm not for a rate increase, and certainly not what if they charge $5 a loaf for bread in Petersburg, that don't mean A&P has to charge $5. We can get it for $2. So a small rate increase, but let's look at one, the federal grants we can get. Let's spend some money and hire a grant writer. Allocate 10 or 20,000 to do it. Sit down with the city and the administrators and come up with how do we use some of this head tax, because we have more visitor industry, visitor businesses in the harbor and through the charter boats than they do downtown, all total downtown. So we should get it all, I guess. And then again, sit down with KPU and say, hey, this is the new world. The state doesn't own the harbors any longer. We do. How do we work out the electrical and water when it needs to be replaced in the harbors? We shouldn't have to pay the whole deal and you take all the money for the electricity that new system is sold. And I think there's ways we can do this without, we got the best harbor department we've ever had. I've been in the harbor for 63 years. This is the best one we ever had. And the Pacific Queen skipper died on it. The family that owned the boat down south didn't call the Coast Guard to go get it. They called Dan Berg to go get it. And that's just representative. Well, a couple of them sitting right there, right now. I mean, they could move any boat in the harbor if it needed to be. So we want to retain those guys if we can. But let's look at some of these other funding sources before we plow ahead with what you're doing there. And if it's $5 for a loaf of bread in Petersburg, we don't have to sell $5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jay and Sharon Creasy.
Jay Creasy, 860 Forest Park, Thomas Basin. So I have to say right off, I'm really happy with the service that I've had at Thomas Basin. Harbor's crew's been good. Shoot, they power blast the walkways once a year or twice a year. And I've been there about 10 years and the rates have been fairly steady. So I'm going, why do we have to go up? I mean, I haven't looked at the details on all of this stuff, but why all of a sudden, after 10 years of fairly steady rates, are we raising the rate so high? And I'm sure there's good reasons. I guess I would say, you know, I've managed many times and, you know, over the years. And when we get together for our budget meetings, all the managers would have a good idea. They'd want a warehouse. They'd want a parking lot. I just think that is fine, but how are we going to pay for that? And maybe you have a piggy bank where you start to save some money or you plan for that expense. Is it immediate or is it not? And I just think that's an awfully significant hike in rates, which seems to be, and it seems a little cavalier. We're just gonna, well, we know we got these guys that can't really do a lot. I mean, I know you think about it, and I know it's painful, and I want to thank you all for your service, but it's an easy, you know, it's always the easiest, well, we'll just raise the rates, but there might, you know, there should be other options for, and I'm not that interested in a new parking lot, you know, or whatever. But I know it's expensive and I know, you know, that you have a lot of costs. I'll just leave it at that because I know there's a lot of people. Thanks.
Thank you. Ronald McKinley.
Ronald McKinley, 636 Nicky Way, and
Trig Westergaard. The survey has a number of issues in it. It's inaccurate at best, misleading in a lot of ways. For instance, Haines and Skagway they compared our rates to theirs, but they used the harbor that's only a summertime harbor and compared ours to their transient harbor rate. They also have in a lot of these cities 50% off for locals, fishermen, whatever, people that are here in the winter, half rates. So they don't take into any of that account in this survey. So the survey is completely junk. That aside, there are lots of other ways to increase revenue. And in that survey, it discusses 4 different items that we could do. I'm kind of frustrated that we're only talking about item number 4, which is increase. How about making more slips, building new harbors? There's also other options like where out of the 8% sales tax that we just got raised up in the summer, is the ports getting any of that? Right now, port fees for the cruise ships, only 40% of that goes to ports and harbors. Why isn't more of that going to the ports and harbor side to fund some of this? Increase the summertime daily rates is a great idea. Take advantage of all these people that are traveling through our community and have money, and obviously have money to burn because they're up here playing in yachts, and increase it to them. Take it out of them. But we can't get rid of the 3-month and the month pass. That just makes this unbelievably expensive. If I was to keep my boat here for the winter, and I've been on the waiting list for God knows how long, 4 years now, and I'm going to be paying about $40,000 to keep my boat here for the winter, 100-footer, if you guys get rid of the 3-month passes and I pay a daily rate. That's just, I won't. You're going to lose so much revenue from fishermen and other people that are going to say, screw this. I'm going to either take my boat if it's too big to pull on a trailer up to Wrangell or Petersburg, and if it's small enough to put on a trailer, they're going to pull it out of the water, and you guys are going to lose revenue. This is not a revenue generating way by increasing the rates this high. we gotta figure out a way to use the head tax. You guys have heard that over and over again. There's also other ways like that Bayside slip that's down there by the creek. Why don't we turn that into something and upsell it to the charter guys? Or build a harbor for the charter guys that can be used with head tax money because it's solely for charter guys. Or a harbor, there's lots of ways we can get around this solely thing that the lawyer needs to start looking into. Also, there's we have the harbor plays games with the size of your boat. If your engine sticks out a couple inches, it goes to the bigger size. So they say that we're out of 40-foot slips, but we've got lots of 30-foot slips. Why don't we stop playing the games and get people into slips so that we can generate that revenue? The Army Corps breakwater, there's 2,000 plus feet of moorage we could be using. Why don't we punch float 12 out to it, and then you've got 1,200 feet on the outside and 1,200 feet on the inside. Obviously, the outside wouldn't be able to be used in the winter, but it could be used in the summer. The harbor does all of the maintenance and repairs and services for the port. So we're out of our money that we're paying for the harbor slips, paying for the port stuff, but we're only seeing 40% of their money coming back the other way. I think that's not really fair. And I think there's other ways to find revenue other than just penalize the people that live here. Anything else? That's about it.
Thank you.
Questions?
No, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Anthony Knudsen?
Tony Knudsen. Local boy. Ketchikan strong. Everybody's coming up with a bunch of ideas on how to make more money. Grants, more infrastructure, yada, yada, yada. There's a lot of different ways we could try and do it. Raising the rates excessively. And I know this is just a study and it's nothing set in stone, but getting an out-of-town company, I mean, we're dumping money out of town just to get them to give us a feasibility study. So, I mean, that's kind of a tricky one. The harbor department's always been good to me. I like the FAB board. I think you guys are doing a good job, but this one's kind of a tricky one. To raise the rates that high, it's gonna hurt all of us. All of you guys have a boat in the harbor of some kind, I think, right? You're screwing yourself. I mean, I know you're not saying, oh yeah, we definitely did this already, but yeah, just even taking their advice, taking that study's advice is, I don't know, I think it's a little silly. I know you guys are trying to come up with ideas and you're gonna need a lot more time than just a couple hours in a FAB meeting every third Thursday of the month to come out with an idea how to make it better. I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to come up with money though too, and I think hurting all of us by raising rates. We're already spending so much money on everything we do. All of us, not everybody, right? We're overtaxed, we're underpaid, it doesn't end. So is this gonna, if we did adopt this and we said, okay, let's do it, I mean, we're part of the problem, right? We just give a little bit more money out of our pockets. I don't know, hope you guys kind of get, you get the gist. There's tons of us in here that all feel the same way. I know you guys probably feel the same way. Just try to make your best decision, that's all I can say. And we'll try and come stronger next time, and I don't know, disregard half of the study. Maybe, I don't know. I think we should decrease the rates. I mean, we're already paying so much on everything else. I mean, everything, when we go to Murray Pacific or Pacific Pride or Tongass or buy things out of town and ship it up on AML, we know AML costs are going through the roof. I mean, we're getting dinged everywhere, and now we're gonna get dinged by us. We're gonna ding ourselves. I mean, that's just, so I don't need to take a whole bunch of time, but hopefully you guys are gonna make the right decision for all of us. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Questions? All right, thank you.
I'll vote for someone who decreases rates.
Having a little hard time with the next one. Neville Johnson?
That's me.
Okay, thank you. Your
Yeah,
name's
my name's Peter Neville
Peter,
Johnson,
thank you.
and I have a permit slip in, South Bar Harbor on float 6, slip 37, and I also have a commercial fishing boat that's on open moorage, because there's an 8-year wait list for my size boat. So anyway, first thing I want to start off with is this study puts forward a bunch of false claims. The first false claim it makes, it says, there's no harbor in Alaska that issues 3 months permits. Well, hey, quick look on the internet. Craig, Hoonah, and Pelican all issue 3 months permits. Craig, Haynes, and Juneau all issue 6 months permits. So, that outright false. Okay, it makes a misleading claim that a 1 month permit only pays for 11 days and gets 19 days free. It makes the claim the 3 month permit pays for 17 days and gets 73 days free. Well, this is not, that has no merit. And when I go in and I buy a 3 month permit for my commercial fishing boat, I pay for 90 days. The rate I pay for that 3 month permit is 60% more money than is paid per foot per month by reserve moorage in this town. So how am I getting 3 days? If you say that idea, that there's 3 days and that needs to be done away with has merit, put that on the reserved stalls. If you put that on the reserve stalls, then the reserve stalls are only paying 21 days out of the 6 months, and they're getting 161 days free. Well, I say that concept, which that study puts forth, has no merit. All the harbors give a discount for long-term moorage. Long-term moorage has different costs to the harbor than short-term moorage for a few days. Okay, in my situation, this proposed rate increase is January 1st, 2024, is going to result in a 226% increase in my cost of moorage for my commercial fishing boat. Now, that is not the end of it. It's going to go up another 15% a year, so that it's going to be $530 in 2024, and it's going to be $806 a month by 2027. Okay, I called around the other harbors here because there's a claim in the study that after this rate increase, Ketchikan is still going to be the most affordable place. I called around the other harbors. I called Wrangell, Juneau, Haynes, Hoonah, Cake, Craig, and Pelican and Petersburg, and got what they would charge me right now for my commercial fishing boat. And the rates in those harbors will range from 60%, that's the highest one, Juneau, 60% of what Ketchikan's going to want to be charging me, down to 10% per month for my commercial fishing boat. Okay. Let's see. I'll make it really quick. Real world, a radical increase in the harbor rate is going to reduce the total actual harbor use. And that's going, this flawed study predicts that we increase the rates by 60%, we're going to get 60% more revenue. That's not going to happen. My own personal response to this harbor rate increase is I'm going to move my commercial fishing operation elsewhere in Southeast Alaska if this rate goes through. It's prohibitive. My rate this next year would be over $6,000 for my commercial fishing boat. By 2027, it will be $9,700 and something for my commercial fishing boat. In all those other harbors I just listed, the only one that would be similarly expensive would be Sitka. And all those other harbors, my rate would be from $3,000 down to less than $1,000. Okay, thank you. Thank you guys very much for listening to us. And, I wish you good. And there is a lot of other ways that we can raise some more money other than doing this radical increase in rates. Thank you.
Thank you. Nathaniel Curl?
Nathaniel Pearl, 351 D2 Loop Road. I don't know that I have a lot more to add than what you've already heard or what you'll hear from more people. I just want to echo what other people have said. I think you need to go back and look at other ways to increase revenue and perhaps try and manage what projects you're looking at in the future. This kind of rate increase will be detrimental to a lot of people in this town. This is an island community. We depend on our harbors and being able to use our harbors, which require a boat. I ask you to please consider those people, especially people that can't afford an increase like this. But one other thing I would add is I agree with the comments that there are parts of the study and the survey that went out that are flat out misleading compared to what a lot of people who have done surveys of other harbors talking about Ketchikan's Harbor being still the most affordable in Southeast Alaska after a 60% or really more like a 75% increase. Other things in the report that just do not ring true for many people out here. And that loss of trust can have a real bad impact when people are looking at rate increases like this. So please be careful to maintain that trust with the public. And I think you've heard a lot of ideas about different ways this can be done. Please take those into account and look at different ways that you might be able to attack this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker, first name Jim, but I'm sorry, I can't make out the last name. I think it's Jim. Is there a Jim in the audience? Well, I'm gonna go to the next speaker, and if I miss somebody, we'll get you at the end. Ben Hastings.
I'm not speaking.
You're not speaking?
I just want information, handouts. I have no clue what's going on. I'd like to read up on it.
Okay, do we have any extra copy? You can have.
Here, Becky.
Clark Slaniker?
I'm Clark Slaniker, 3136 Tide Avenue. I'm out in the borough. I'm a lifelong Ketchikanite. I know most of you. Most of you know me. I'm here to speak out against this. I mean, I'm a power troller. I know a couple of you guys have a lot of experience in the commercial fisheries. And this study and these rate increases that are proposed seem a little bit crazy to me. 3 years ago, my fuel bill for the season was $9,000. The last 2 years, it's been $16,000. And as power trollers, we operate on a pretty slim margin. And, you know, this is going to sting. Some guys more than others. And fortunately for me, I do have a smaller boat than most guys. But, I mean, I'm not going to get redundant with the numbers. Everybody's been up here telling you what the numbers are. But, I mean, I agree with a lot of these proposals. I mean, we got to find other places to get revenue out of the tourism dollar and the transients that are coming through all the time in the summer. And instead of just attacking the locals, I mean, after COVID, we're all taking hits. We all go to the grocery store. We know groceries have skyrocketed. We all have to buy gas. We all know that the gas has skyrocketed. There's just not a lot of blood left to squeeze out of the commercial fleet. This year, our prices collapsed and our buyers quit buying late in the season. That hurt. I mean, that hurt a lot of guys. That was all their profit. Late season, all the bills are paid, and they got shut down. They didn't get to have profit. I'm sure Jim could attest to that because he's a sailor himself. And I just think that you guys need to take a real close look at this before you just stick it to the locals and increase these rates drastically. There has to be other ways to generate revenue for the harbor. I have no ill will towards any of you guys or any of the harbor guys. I have good rapport with the harbor guys. They treat me well. But, I mean, a 60%, I mean, actually, in actuality, it's a 71% increase. That's just crazy. I mean, you can't just, you're going to put some guys out of business and you are going to lose revenue. Like Pete said, he's going to take his show on the road and he's not going to be the only one. So I wish you guys the best on this. And, but think it through, because this proposal is crazy. Thank you.
Thank you. Rianne Johnson.
Hi there. Rianne Johnson. I live aboard at MVC Dancer, currently parked at City Float. I have been there for 2 years, in and around the area, and I've been on the waiting list for moorage for 2 years. When I called in last week, I was told I have 3 years-ish left on that waiting list before I'll get permanent moorage. So that's about 5 years. That's kind of what has been advertised for that. People have addressed lots and lots of things. Poor data. I'm a data analyst. I've been doing that for my entire career. And whatever was paid for this study, I'm telling you, it was way too much. And it was done by somebody who knows nothing about harbors or Southeast Alaska. Or making graphs. I made you guys some visuals. And I did it from my perspective that shows where some of the gaps in the study are. We're being gaslighted by this study. It's telling us over and over again that we're going to remain the competitive rates within the area. And the reality is we are going to remain competitive for daily rates because they're not going up for 4 years. And we will remain somewhat competitive for annual long-term moorage. And I say somewhat because there's only one harbor that will be close to what we are, and that's Bay in Juneau, which is the most expensive relatively overall. But in every other capacity, we won't be more expensive or competitive. In fact, we'll be double or more for anybody who's doing long-term or any sort of open moorage. Waitlisted boats and long-term moorage are going to pay double what they would anywhere else that I've found in Southeast Alaska. And that's just starting in January with this proposal. Over the next 4 years, I will then pay quadruple what is currently being paid at almost any other harbor in Southeast Alaska. That's significant. All of the data that was presented in the study focused very specifically on those two categories that are competitive. The annual moorage and the daily moorage for transients, but they did not address any of the nuances in between. So you guys are welcome to look at this. You can have these show some of those nuances. I also put in here the rate hike for electricity for all of those boats that I'm talking about are paying daily.
We keep these?
You can keep those, yeah. They're paying daily rates, not usage rates. And in a lot of the harbors that I'm speaking of, the long-term and waitlisted boats would be paying metered electric and not daily rates. So the rates might be even lower because they'd be paying for actual use of electricity. So I wasn't able to put, and I can hand this to you as well, I wasn't able to put my charts into my comments. So this is my comments plus the charts. And the charts show what those increases look like for a boat that's on the waiting list or for a boat that's paying long-term moorage. And I think that's been a huge gap in the analysis of this study, among other things. But those rates are going to really significantly harm people who are paying long-term, waitlist or otherwise. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremy Bynum.
Do a new study. Yeah, pay her.
Jeremy Bynum.
Mr. Chair, Board, Advisory Board, Jeremy Bynum, 433 Front Street. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of myself and myself only and no other entity. I came and spoke at the last meeting and you guys said that you like to have folks in the audience here participating, and I think we got it tonight.
We asked for it, yeah.
So that's good to see everybody came out to just have a discussion. I'd sent in a survey and I spent quite a bit of time on the survey, so I won't go over all the details that I put in there, but I did talk a lot about rate design, talked about services, capital improvements, a lot of the things that we're hearing about tonight. But I did just want to talk about a few items. I made up a quick spreadsheet here. I didn't have a lot of time to put it together, so there's probably some minor errors. I will make that available to you. It just lays out the rates that everybody's kind of talking about. What is the multiplier based on daily rates versus reserve mortgage versus 90-day rates, 30-day rates? I'll provide this in an email with the footnotes so that it's a little easier to understand. I think I found a few little errors in it. But overall, it does reflect some of the things that we've been hearing tonight, that currently our rates in Ketchikan are very flat. They're monolithic. There's not much to them other than they're saying price per foot. And when I went and looked at the study, and we've heard a lot about the study tonight, and if I was given a peer review on this, I would say that this is really just trying to gather information from the area about what rates were published here. I found a couple tables that were helpful, but it is not a rate design, and it doesn't tell us how we should be developing rates. What it's basically doing is it's saying that you have a gap in what your operational revenue is in your operating cost and capital. There's a gap. We know that there's a gap. It only solves it by just saying, take your current rates and multiply them by some number. And we've heard they said 68% in here. We've talked about this. I've heard this talked about here previously at the city council. It's been talked about the 15% per year. And as people have pointed out, it does escalate to 74.9%, I believe, over that 4-year period. So it's not a 60% increase. But I don't think that that's technically relevant when we talk about how we design rates. We got really good staff that really look at how do we do a rate design. Managers talked a lot about this to council, and I think we'll continue to do so, that it's just not monolithic. We take our operational cost, expenses, goods, capital, we look at that over a 30-year period of time and then year to year, and we develop a rate that's going to cover cost. And one of the things that we notice in a lot of these other harbors is that they just don't have one rate for per foot. What they're doing is they're saying is what services are you receiving for your mortgage, and then you're paying for those. And so you'll see in some of these, they have the larger the vessels, the higher the rates are by a bit. And the reason for that is because the cost of doing dockage and mortgage and all of that stuff is much more expensive for larger vessels than smaller vessels, obviously. So I think that as you go through that process, you're going to hear about some of the ideas about how do you do a rate design. I think that'll be really important to this conversation. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that we have harbors that are safe, harbors that are very usable, harbors that are friendly and accessible, and that I'm willing to pay for whatever that cost is to make sure that I'm getting those services. One thing that I did not include in the write-up, and apologize for the time, one of the issues that I'd seen in this study that was done and also with the proposed rates is that there's a discussion about removing the 90-day permit. And I don't have a particular issue with removing the 90-day permit as an idea, but there is a massive consequence to that. And that consequence is to people that are on the reserve mortgage list and have been on that list for a long time. And like I said at the last meeting, the purgatory list for many. And their rates will more than double. They will triple and quadruple over time. And so I would propose one of the solutions to that is that if you're in open mortgage and you're on the waiting list, that there has to be a mechanism that extends the reserve mortgage rate to that person. Now, I don't know all the specific details right now, what the impact of that would be, but I think that that would be an equitable way of addressing the open mortgage person that is waiting on the list for multiple years to get a fair cost for the services. The second thing that I would like to say is when you do that, that when you're in open mortgage, you are paying for space and you're paying for it at a premium with little to no services. So at the minimum, when you pay for that space, you should actually get the space. So if they put you out there off at the end of float 15 in open mortgage and you're paying double or triple, you should actually be assigned that spot until you can get it in if you're paying for it. We don't currently have that happening. So you may leave and you'll come back and then they'll stick you at Thomas Basin or at City Float or whatever. So I think that there's some adjustments that can be made. We'll leave the rate setting to the professionals at the harbors and in the manager's office, come up with a good rate design, bring a recommendation back to the ports and harbors so that we pay for the services that we're using and that we equally and fairly pay. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that I missed or that didn't sign up that would like to address the board? Come on. Come on, man.
Delise Olmsted, 1192 Black Bear Road. I've lived here for about 38 years. I married a man who spent most of his life here. His father was a commercial fisherman and a charter boat fisherman on a larger vessel, and my husband spent years working with him. So when I married, then of course I married into a family of boat owners. I am a lowly janitor, housekeeper. I enjoy going out on the boat. When we started raising our family, it was our entertainment. We didn't travel around the world. We didn't do fancy things, but we had a boat that we could take our kids out on and enjoy Alaska because we live in Alaska, Ketchikan. Why would I live here if I can't enjoy the beauty of it? And because it's an island, there's not too many, we can't jump in our car and drive from town to town and enjoy the sights. We have to go by boat. Thankfully, for most of those years, we had a boat that we could put in the harbor launch and put back on the trailer and kept it at our house. Recently, my husband has retired and he always said that eventually I'd like to get a little bit bigger boat. Our backs and knees are bad so that we can't really jump on the speedboat anymore and enjoy it because it hurts too bad. So recently he got an opportunity to buy a 45-foot boat at a very good cost. And we've been working on it and fixing it up. We have it at the harbor, cannot get reserved moorage. We've been told it'll take at least 5 years to get that. So we've been paying the 90-day fees. The last time we paid for a 6-month, two 90 days, cost us $1,300. If I'm looking at a 60 to 70% rate increase, I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm just working some as a janitor. He's retired. Where are we supposed to get this money? I can guarantee you that my income has not increased 60 to 70%. I have cleaned the Ports and Harbors building in the past. They have not increased. If I was to have the account right now, they wouldn't pay me 60 or 70% more. The rate that they pay to a janitor to clean their building is the same that it was about 20 years ago. They don't pay me 60 to 70% more. Neither does the state, neither does the federal government. I have contracts and all of those. I just don't know. I don't even know. I'm saying to my husband, what are we supposed to do with this boat? Am I supposed to sell my house and live on a 45-foot boat in order to have this boat? Because that amount every month in 5 years is what I'm going to have to pay for what I pay on my mortgage every month. I can't afford 2 homes. I can't afford paying $1,300 a month for my home mortgage and that much again practically every month. So I'm like, what happened to, we've spent millions of dollars to have a nice parking lot for the airport and a nice building, and we've had these major improvements for the airport, which is important for our community because people fly in and out on those planes all the time because we're an island. But what about the boat people who need to go on their boats because we're an island? Where is some of that money that could have been used for the boats and harbors? We pay for having our boats in the boats and harbors, but for instance, people who ride the bus, the city bus system or borough bus system, they only pay $1 to $3 to ride that bus because the community supplements. Does the bus system pay for only, do the riders on the bus system pay for that whole bus system? Only the riders on the bus? I kind of doubt it. So why do only the harbor people, especially the locals, have to support this whole ports and harbors? Can we charge more to transients, to the millionaires who bring their boats in during the summer? Can we have a sliding scale fee so that somebody like me doesn't have to pay quite as much as a boat owner who is a millionaire who has boats come up from Seattle and enjoy our great Alaska? So again, I don't even know if these kind of rates were put into effect. I don't even know what we would do. I don't know if we could have a boat to enjoy ourselves on. Thank you. But thank you very much for listening to me, and thank you for really trying to see what we can do to solve this problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Norman Jackson. I've been I think fisherman for 47 years. I was in high school. I got a boat when I was a freshman. My brother gave it to me. I had it hard. I've been down using the ports and the harbors since then, and I'm still there. I remember I paid like $359.97 for maybe a 35-foot boat. It's $17.59 now. I want to commend the harbor department for not raising it. Yeah, it's a real sad day. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. People buying boats, maybe they might not buy the boat. Maybe the boat, people selling boats won't sell, you know. It's going to hurt everybody. But my family's been fishing here forever. My grandpa was a fisherman, probably the early 1900s. Yeah, sometimes we have a hard time paying this bill. It's a little bit out there. And I'm not mad, I just don't like you comparing us to Juneau or Sitka. This is Ketchikan. This is our town. We make our decisions. We keep our people here. We keep our people employed. I like local employment and I love my town. And I'm not going nowhere. This is where I'll lay myself to rest. They'll lay me there. And I want you to know that I don't want to see people moved off their boats and because they can't pay their mortgage. I don't stay on a boat, but I've stayed on a boat before. I've lived on a boat, and I'm gonna continue fishing. And I have fellow fishermen friends and everybody, and people that aren't fishermen and recreational boat owners. I'd love them to be able to have their boat and keep it down there and be able to afford it. It's been some tough times. But you know, I told everybody in this town, we're going to make it. We're going to pull through these tough times. When we went through COVID and everything, it was a hard time for us. Food prices are hard. They said everything tonight. There's nothing else I wanted to say except, please don't do this to us. Please don't do this to the community. There's going to be younger boat owners come up after we're done, and they're going to have to take the blunt of this high raise in mortgage. And what's going to come next, I don't know. But I tell people that come to our town, please don't leave, because Ketchikan's such a beautiful place. You don't need to go anywhere else. This is where you can raise your family and be happy and live the rest of your life out. It's a good community, and it's our community. If we're going to compare ourselves to somebody, compare ourselves to ourselves. This is where we love each other. That's what I see around here. I love Ketchikan. I love the people here, and I like to see them get out into the ocean and not be able to have to worry about not owning a boat or having to sell it. That's about all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rodney Burba, and
I didn't grow up here, but I have family here. I started fishing here in 2000, commercial fishing in 2005. I think one of my first seine season was on Russell's boat. And I just kind of fell in love with it. And I have an uncle that runs a seiner, another aunt and uncle that run a power troller. And I just, like I said, fell in love with it. I got my first boat, I believe, in 2011, 2012. And I just remember the growing pains of learning the fisheries and doing the different things, and just the end of the season, seeing where everything lied, and just, feeling that throughout the years. And I just think about, like, today, our sea cucumber season last year, we went from $6 a pound to $2.75 a pound. Like, that's a big hit, And when it comes to the dive fisheries, you don't know what the price is going to be until you offload. A lot of times salmon's the same way. And I just really think about the commercial fishermen a lot. There's a lot of younger guys that want to get into it, and they're going to feel those same growing pains. And to have to pay these type of rates just to tie up your boat, I mean, let alone boat maintenance, all that stuff, it's huge. It's tough. And there's going to discourage a lot of people from, Ketchikan was a fishing community, a logging community, and it's kind of gravitating away towards that. I just feel that over the years. And, I hear a lot about the head tax, and I don't know exactly what that is, but when I do construction in town as well, so I've done a lot of work on jewelry stores, renovating jewelry stores, and I see the kind of money these guys throw around. And I understand a lot of that comes from other places too, but, when I think of a head tax, I think when you're going to check out, you say you're planning your cruise that you've been planning forever. And I'm not trying to bag the tourist industry, but like to have a $10 port tax that you're going to click off as a fee that you're going to pay, when you're going to go to town buying furs and jewelry, you're not going to really care about a $10 or whatever that head tax is, And, but I just think of people's lifestyles, ways of life. This is just going to affect people on such a significant level. And I think there's a lot of streams of revenue in this town that can be really considered. And like tonight's the first night I really heard about this survey. And honestly, it sounds like a lot of BS. And to come to the people and say that's a pretty big hike to just out of nowhere say, hey, this is what we're going to start charging you guys. I mean, that's as a small town and a community, that's just I feel like it's just kind of a slap in the face to a lot of people. And I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to, share our thoughts. And I really hope you guys take into consideration what you guys have heard tonight and, what was said, because it is, whether you got a pleasure boat, commercial boat, it's going to hurt. It's going to affect the bottom line. And as we know, every aspect of our lives has changed so much from COVID and just the cost of living nowadays. So, I just think of the backbone of Ketchikan. The water is just such a big part of our lives. So let's really take that into consideration before we make any drastic moves. And my other question is why do we need to raise these rates so much right now? Is there some significant repairs or some significant thing that needs to be taken care of that we need to raise the rates in this way? Or is it something that we can sit back and kind of take a more gradual approach? And like I said, look at some of the other streams of revenue in this town. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm Charlie Piercy. Boat's been in the harbor for 72 years. I haven't been around that long. Be interesting to know what the rate was when I first went in there. Compared it today and run a CPI on it. But the scientist in me tells you on another topic that when you put out a premise, i.e. this survey, and you get all kinds of bad results. Results don't make sense to me, so you better go back and check your premise. What were you trying to accomplish in this first place? And then when people get up here and speak with passion and everything, I think about the commercial fleet. They pay raw fish tax here in town, and that's a significant amount of money. And you gotta run them out of town. Now, Pete, he didn't talk about Sitka, but I'll tell you what Sitka did. They did the same thing you're thinking about doing. And the rate went, I think, from about $11 10 years, it's over 46 now for tie up the dock. And I bet you half of us transient trawlers don't even tie up in the harbor anymore. Tie up the oil dock after they shut down, go get groceries, we anchor up, we take our skiff into the plant, get groceries, have groceries come down by mail order. We don't use the harbor anymore. It's too expensive. But we're cluttering up the entrance to the harbor. Old Sitka Harbor is full of boats. You'll have that out here if they have another big pink run out here, like last year where no money in them. One of them boats, they're fortunate that they come in here and tie up at a reasonable rate. So that's, you gotta look at something like that. I think you gotta look at the industries that use this harbor that do more for this town than just using the harbor for pleasure. If I make any sense to it, you've ran half the commercial fleet out of Ketchikan. When I came here, there was twice as many, 3 or 4 times as many trawlers. Now, it ain't all Ketchikan's fault. Dynamics of the fishery and consolidation, but it's still, you're not thinking about that. You're building on the backs of previous industry, a tourist industry. And they destroy our roads and they do all kinds of things. Maybe they wear our harbors out, I don't know. Maybe they should pay for the service rendered. Maybe you should have a thing where you have more in the summer and less in the winter. Or you have a discount for the guys that are here all year. Have a fancy high rate, but give us all something off. They did that to the Sitka fishermen just to get it passed. They give them some kind of a bonus. And I can get my $42 is 25% off if I take my fish ticket in there. I'll be damned if I'm going to give the harbor department my gross income on a fish ticket. It just galls me no end. So I had 3 points. The last point, I guess, was users in the harbor. I view liveaboards as a security neighborhood watch for me. Guys that tie up next to Russell, been on that boat, that old couple, for years. And I feel confident they'd call me if somebody's messing around my boat. And all us fishermen are watching the boat. Russell watches my boat and vice versa, and there's a whole bunch of us. So I don't think we need more security. And the final point is, you should look at the budget and see what all the expenses are. You get your costs down and your income up is the way you balance your budget. Now, if you're gonna try to balance the harbor budget all on one, 80% I heard tonight was basically revenues. So it's either a huge amount of money in revenue and you need 15% to get 20% more revenue. That's your premise there. Don't make any sense to me. I've looked at any numbers. I just heard from my son that I better come in there and talk about this because he bent my ear pretty hard. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you come to the right decision. You guys being on the city have no control of what you do.
Thank you.
Sad.
Anybody else like to address the board this evening? Did you want to speak, sir? In the back? Okay. Well, I don't see anybody else, so I think we're gonna close public comment. Oh,
Speak one more time, like, do you guys want input and numbers and stuff, or do you guys have all these numbers for Haynes and Skagway and to prove that survey is just BS? I mean, I could show you the numbers if you want them. I don't know if that's something that interests you
Well,
guys.
it does interest us. For the sake of getting through the meeting though, and letting everybody have one chance to speak, is that something you'd be willing to email to the harbor department so that, and they'll share it with the board and the council? Could we go that way, please?
Absolutely, yeah, I didn't want to waste a whole bunch of time, but I've done a little bit of reading, it didn't take that long to figure out the survey was BS, so. What's the
email you want to send to?
Dan, what's?
Send it, I mean, I'm not gonna be out of the office for the next couple of weeks, myself, but, James would be a good one to contact.
When's that?
My email
When's
works in Spain.
Meeting for the city council?
Pardon me? Said my
December
email works in
12th is
Spain.
going to be the city council meeting to address
I'm
this.
sure yours does too.
I will,
Getting
yeah,
it
but I'm gonna be indisposed.
You guys should have had this information to start with before you threw up this, survey. You guys should be doing this research and not us doing your jobs.
I have seen better information out of children's novels than this crowd, and people with professional degrees and more lifetimes of experience in this room have all laid out why and given this hard number.
Okay.
Why this survey is a load of crap. Rate increases are not entirely
All right,
something that is.
you
out of
had your,
question, but
okay, I appreciate the comments, sir. You had your,
is
you had your
unreasonable.
chance to speak.
68%
Okay? So I think what we're gonna do then, since there's nobody else that wants to speak, we're gonna go ahead and close the persons to be heard portion of the meeting. So we can get on with it. If you have additional comments, you can get Mr. Wilson's email and you can send them to him. All right, so that is gonna move.
Also,
I don't have a card with me. I'm on the city council. I am CM4. If you go to the city website and find the city council, Mark Flora, cm4@city.ak.us.
I get all of your guys' work emails so I can email you some more strongly worded letters. And if anyone else I know wants to contact you, they may. All of the voters in this town who I guarantee you, if we do this, anyone who has a vote in the harbor will never vote for you or support any venture of yours.
If you email me, I can make sure it gets into the hands of the entire board. We'll go that route. Okay, thank you.
That's nice.
All right, then I think we'll move on to unfinished business, the harbor rate increase. So we had substantial input from the public tonight. Lots to think about, lots of good ideas. I think what I'd like to do, if the board doesn't object, I'd like to see if any members of the staff have anything they'd like to relay to the board post public comment this evening, and then we'll take a stab at this.
But there was lots of, I'm happy that there were so many people here, and to speak. And, you know, this, proposal was one that, yes, we commissioned it. And, you know, we've discussed this with the board. You know, I hear a lot about people want more services, but if you take a look at our budgets, we don't have the budget. We operate at a shortfall. What our mortgage rates bring in versus what our operating costs are, some several $100,000 shortfall, which is made up from the general fund at that point. And, you know, the harbors are not part of the general government services like public works or wastewater or solid waste. That's not how they were set up. That's not my fault or staff's fault. That's how it was set up many, many years ago. You know, so I'm, you know, we've looked at this as a business and trying to figure out where do we have some bad business decisions? And so these are ones that we think some of them were bad business decisions with how much people pay for open mortgage permits, you know, 11 days out of 30 for a 1 month permit, 20 days out of 90 for a 3 month permit. You know, that's just not sustainable. You know, James spoke to the city council last month. You know, at that point, through the end of August, we had sold 547 3-month permits. That works out to about 39,000 days of mortgage that were given away. I mean, you were a business owner, Mark. If I came to you for 20 oil changes and then I said I want the next 70 free, you would laugh me out of the office. So we're trying to look, and it's not that it's a money grab for right now. We're looking to invest in the future of the harbors. We have a harbor in, Bar Harbor North that was built by the state with a 30-year service life. It's now 42 years old, and we don't have any money to rebuild it. We can barely maintain it. I mean, people talk about holes in the concrete, and our guys are trying their best to fix these things, but they're just Band-Aids. And at some point, that dock is going to start coming apart, and we don't have the money to fix it. So what are our alternatives when it starts breaking apart? We close the float, all those boats that had reserve stalls are out of stalls. So, rate increase, no one likes rate increase. I'm not a big fan of, when I read this, it said 68%. I mean, I was floored. But when we look at the list of projects, CIP projects that are going to need to be funded over the next 10 to 20 years, and the harbor is flat broke at this point, we need to start doing something to sock money away. So yeah, that's my perspective on this at the moment. And by all means, we're going to go back to the office and start coming up with, see what we can tweak and what we can do to make this a little more palatable for people. But in order for us to continue to offer moorage and services, there has to be something.
Okay. Thanks, Dan. James, did you have anything that you wanted to?
I was just gonna add that this was just a proposal, which means we could come back with a completely different proposal after hearing everybody tonight, reading all 103 surveys that were filled out. I read every single one of them.
I did as well.
When we come back with the next proposal, we'll definitely take into account what everybody said. We are listening, and we don't want to raise rates. We want to try to do it where it impacts no sector more than one other one. Clearly, we need to change some things with that. We're going to try to come up with a plan and try to make it as painless as possible.
Well, I see we've been joined by the city manager tonight. So Ms. Walsh, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Councilor Flora. And first of all, it's Lila Walsh, for the record, city manager. I want to thank you all. I know you're citizen volunteers as a group, and I know a lot of you are the Port Harbor users. You have been the voice of our citizenry, so I very much thank you for your volunteerism and giving your time and effort to this cause every day of the year, not just without these meetings. So thank you for that first. I think, and Dan and James have already said this, I just want to reiterate, again, this is a proposal. We had the rate study done. We know that there's a need. We know we're not meeting the revenue requirement of the harbor in order to meet operational and capital improvement needs. I think we need to do a better job of explaining how the harbor fund works. I think we've identified that it is a special services fund. It is not supported by other taxes. It's not subsidized by other industries. It does have to be a self-supported services fund, just like our solid waste fund has to be self-supporting. Whatever you pay for trash has to be paid for at the customer level. So it is a special services fund. That's how it's set up. As Dan mentioned, we did not construct the harbors. I think we estimated, what, 50 million if we wanted to build out new slips?
For Bar Harbor, yeah, Bar Harbor North would be, a good ballpark estimate would be $50 million to replace Bar Harbor North.
So those are things that we have identified and looked at, but I want to iterate what we've heard tonight is I think we will be going back to the table to look at the proposal. How can we make adjustments based on this customer input as well as citizen input? A lot of it talking about the reserve and open moorage, how that could be different for those who are on a waiting list, because those are customers who are longtime users most impacted by removing the 90-day permit. I like the idea of that graduated rate. That's not something we've looked at. We've looked at a flat rate increase, and so I can do some math and see what that would look like and impact our rate system, and maybe we do soften the blow in some areas. Also, the suggestions of maybe we look at a different implementation plan. So that's absolutely everything that was said, and all those 100+ comments that Dan read and James read and I read. There are some really good suggestions there, and so we will be going back to the table to come back with a proposal for City Council. So what was presented is again a proposal. And this is the reason we want this process. We wanted public input, we wanted public feedback, so we could go back and make sure that we are doing what we need to do. Jeremy mentioned earlier about rate design, and that is something we have to consider. What is it we're trying to accomplish through our rate setting? And that's actually something we'll be talking about with the City Council on Thursday during their work session. Rate design as a process economically for the entire city of Ketchikan, as well as KPU, as well as the harbors, as well as the port. The other point I wanted to mention also, the port does support the harbors. I know that was a question of it. We have a really tiny harbor staff when you think about it, and they're paid out of the port fund also. So we don't use harbor money to support the port. It's kind of the other way around, the way we're set up. But again, that's our fault for not communicating that well to our citizens and making sure we get the information out there. So again, thank you. If you all have comments or suggestions based on the input that you've heard tonight, please send that to Dan and James, because we are going to be brainstorming and going through this again and looking at, can we come up with a better rate design that meets the needs of the maintenance that we have to perform, as well as the needs of our end user. So it's hard. There's going to be a rate increase somewhere. What that looks like, that's what we're working on now.
Okay, any questions for Manager Walsh? All right, thank you. All right. Well, gentlemen, it's up to us now. Anybody want to weigh in on what you heard tonight? Not, I will, but I want to give you guys the opportunity.
It was great to have these people come and say their mind. There's a lot of, we didn't talk about why we're here or how badly we need funds, or we're gonna end up with nothing. And it's 7 years coming, way overdue to have this discussion. So I'd like to thank all you for being here. We're all volunteers, so thank you. December 17th or 12th. That's where you gotta be, December 12th at City Council meeting.
That's when the next iteration or whatever revised proposals will come to the city council. So I'm the city council member appointed to serve on this board. These gentlemen are all volunteers. I'll throw out a few thoughts. While we are an advisory board, I am gonna, and I'm glad the manager's here, so if I want her to hear this too. I would like staff, in addition to the surveys that you read, there were some notes I made tonight. And this one does speak, a couple people spoke to this, to the public trust. And I think it would be good to go back and just review that study for flaws. That's more than, that's the starting point. That's more than fair to see what holes are in this study that we commissioned. Several things the manager already mentioned, one, but we should probably look at this progressive per foot rate. Federal grants that don't require a match. Community-wide bonds, since the harbor is a community asset like our water system or other things within the public works venue. Reviewing getting rid of the 3-month pass. Things like that. We heard a ton of good suggestions here tonight. And I think we have an obligation to the folks that came and gave up their evenings to look at all of those for how viable are they and how do they impact what the end product is going to look like. Just for the audience, because we did hear, why now? Why so much? Unfortunately, this is symptomatic of the lack of a rate setting policy that this community's had. I've been through this in a lot of different venues. When I got appointed in 2016, right away, we visited water rates. That's how I met Russell. Or one of my first discussions with Russell was about water rates that hadn't been raised in forever. And one set of users subsidizing another. Then we've gone through it with the port. We're going through it with the harbors. We just went through it with public vehicle certificates that haven't been raised since 1993. So unfortunately, we haven't had a coherent rate setting policy. It is on the city council's agenda for this Thursday, so that hopefully by sometime next year, we have a coherent policy across all the departments in our community so that the rates make sense to the users, whether it be the harbors or the utilities or water or wastewater or whatever it is, so that it makes sense, it's understandable to people, and it can be absorbed. I don't know how else to say it. Nobody likes rate increases. We don't either, because as it got pointed out to us tonight, anything that we increase, we're doing it to ourselves as well. This isn't something that the advisory board of the city council imposes on everybody but ourselves. We're the same participants as you folks. In the future, if we can arrive at a sane and logical rate setting policy, regardless of whatever it is, I think it'll be more transparent, and I think it will allow locals to hopefully be able to budget for these types of things on a more incremental basis, where we don't have to talk about things like 68%, 71%. So I want to thank everybody that came and spoke tonight. I think the board listened, sincerely. I know the staff did, and the city council meeting of December 12th is where this will come back for what could be a decision. It may be decided that night, it may not. We'll see what happens, but that'll be the next time that you folks will have an opportunity to show up, call, email, and speak to us. So is there anything else that any board member wants to bring up tonight regarding the harbor rate increase before we get on to new business?
I think we just need to echo what's been said. We probably need to look at the rate study and see where the flaws are in that before we commit to anything.
Fair enough. Yes, sir.
I would like to just speak a little bit about the 90-day open mortgage permit. I believe the intention of getting rid of that was because we have yachts and out of town Seattle Sailors that come up. The idea was, to, basically have people out of town kind of subsidize stuff for the rest of us a little bit. But obviously that there's a lot of people in town that are using that 90-day permit as permanent mortgage because you can't get a slip because you wait 5 years, they're waitlisted. So I think if we're gonna get rid of that 90-day permit, I'd like to see some sort of mechanism that people that are on a wait list, whether you create a new 6-month permit that has a more reasonable mortgage rate for people that are on that wait list, they're using that as a permanent mortgage and not a transient mortgage situation. So.
Something we can look at.
We'll look at that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thanks for coming out. This is
something we've been kicking around the few years I've been on this board, and it's felt like something hanging over our head that no one's ever been willing to talk about. And so I'm really thankful to have this board willing to bring this discussion forward. Sorry, I'm a little sick tonight, so I was a little what have you. But I really think this is important that we have a community-wide discussion, and so thank you for being a participant. I think it's important to recognize that this didn't come from nothing, though. We've started looking at negative numbers, and then that brought forward this conversation. We didn't all get together and say, let's raise the rates. Like, there was no one here was like, that's what we want to do with our time. So I think it's important to honor that fact just as much as we honor your presence and your contributions. I hope that we can come together and make a sensible path forward for all of us. And I really think that that's our goal here. So thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else? All right, well, then I think we'll wrap up unfinished business for tonight and we'll move on to new business. I see item number 1, security gates at the top of the ramps. What do you got for us?
Well, there's been lots of talk about security gate, the need for security gates at the tops of the ramps, especially with the news that the homeless shelter might be moving down to the old VFW building. And I agree, I was not happy to hear that news either, as many harbor users were, because I know that that's going to bring problems. We've talked to Juneau is looking at putting in gates at the tops of their ramp out at Statter Harbor because they have a single access point to that harbor. And talking with them, they just got their proposals back from bids back, and they're looking at about $50,000 to put a gate. It has to be engineered.
One.
And that, so, we haven't reached out to any contractors saying, what could you do? But this is just what another harbor in the state is doing, because at this point, no other public harbor in the state is gated. I absolutely agree we're gonna need more security of some kind somehow when and if the homeless shelter moves in down to VFW. It's also caused some logistical problems for us, because the gates, of course, would remain open during the day when there's harbor staff around. In the summertime, we have staff there till 10 o'clock at night. But we also have fishing vessels that arrive at all times of the day and night, many of them after hours. So, a question that was brought up in our discussion was, okay, so if our harbor staff goes home at 10 o'clock at night and I have a seine boat pull up at 10:30 or 11 and the crew is, itching for a drink, they're going to jump off the boat, they're going to head to the bar, and when or they just got in from Seattle, they're just arriving for the summer. They go through the gate locks behind them. How are those people going to get back to their boats? Because they've just arrived, but we don't have a dedicated open moorage or transient area other than City Float, which is in the summertime is packed. You guys all see that. So there's, in order for us to put security gates, how do we serve the locals as well as our visitors, and keep everyone safe? So, there is we're going to keep, brainstorming and looking at this, but there are some definite operational problems we have with putting gates. And if you're going to put them in Bar Harbor North, you're going to need them in Bar Harbor South too, or else the folks are just going to walk down and go there. So we're looking at 5 gates. For the sake of argument, we're going to say $50,000 a gate. Well, there's $250,000. Where's that money going to come from? Right? We already operate at a loss, and You know, people talk about, well, you know, we're willing to pay for rates if there's some services or some things happening. But there was also a lot of people that especially on the surveys that said, don't raise the rates at all. Someone even said, we need to lower the rates. Well, that's not feasible in a business sense, that the harbors cannot continue to operate status quo. We just can't. So, yeah.
Luckily with Juno putting one in, we're gonna stay in constant contact with them and see how it works for them, and hopefully they'll work the bugs out and give us a better plan for when we do get to that point, if we ever get to that point, putting gates in.
Do we know, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
They'll be our case study.
Do we know any of the details at all? Because, for example, you're talking about particular times a day or particular users. I've visited other harbors that have what some of these folks were talking about, like a key card.
Yeah, that's what they're putting in.
Is that what they're putting in?
Yeah, it's $27,000 to have it built. Yeah, then the extra money is the installation of it, the key card system and everything, and then a dedicated camera for that particular gate.
So that would allow 24/7
Yeah.
ingress, egress for all those harbor users.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. That's kind of what I've seen in other places that I've visited. What do you guys think? Any questions, comments?
How many of these gates would we need?
5 in Bar Harbor, 2 in Thomas Basin. City float, we don't feel that there's any way we can ever beat that.
Would Thomas Basin have to be gated?
No, but I mean, it's kind of, you do it for Bar Harbor, we feel you kind of should do it for Thomas Basin. Those are your 2 major reserve moorage spots. You could also do Canoosian Cove and Hole in the Wall as well, if you so desire to have it out there. So that's, you do Canoosian Cove and Hole in the Wall, that's 9 gates.
Would it be more economical at that point to have live security?
Yeah, at that point, is it 24-hour harbor masters? But that's 24-hour harbor masters, you're spread out. Maybe you could still have just gates at Canoosian Cove and Hole in the Wall, because you don't want, you got 2 harbor masters on and one's got to drive all the way out to Canoosian Cove and spreads it pretty thin. Maybe 24-hour harbor masters in town may be cheaper than gates.
May I?
Yeah.
I feel like responding, and this may be just my misunderstanding or lack of understanding, but it feels like we're responding to a crisis that hasn't happened when we're talking about meeting needs that we can't meet with the money we don't have.
Yeah.
I don't understand why this is a priority in our discussion at the moment. Particularly last time this came up in the board, we were discussing how putting gates in front of ports or putting gates on any of our dock space was kind of a hard no for several of us for a multitude of reasons. For the same reason we wouldn't want the Coast Guard to have us put up a bunch of chain link fence and razor wire on berth 1 and 2. It's not really catch-a-can. I don't know. Early thoughts are that while it might prove to be necessary and it's good to be proactive, it seems like this might be taking an inordinate amount of time and money, and a point where we already have an inordinate amount of time and money to address already.
I'll second that.
Thanks.
Well, actually, I'm the one who pitched this, and this would be similar to getting some of the substantial input we got tonight. I had people approach me when the topic of the shelter being moved came up. I don't know if anybody else on the board was approached. I believe a couple people on staff heard some comments. You make some good points, but I don't want to also lay this completely at the feet of the location of that shelter either. I had the opportunity to tour the harbor maintenance facility with Mr. Wilson, and we talked about a few things, and it seems like there's already some problems with security and vandalism and theft in the harbors presently. For example, there's somebody chucking fire extinguishers in the water every 3 days or something because he showed me a pile of 40 fire extinguishers in this building. So proactive is better than reactive. And of course, it's all going to be based on what's viable as far as funding goes. But one of the reasons I brought it up was just because of input that I got from the community that I represent. So in the end, I don't know staff's perspective of where this fits on the priority list in the harbors. But as you guys are kind of monitoring this and looking through this, I have a request, a favor to ask for the education of the board. As we have future discussions on this, if you guys could give us the specifics, 2 here, 5 there, if, you know, just so we know how many in what locations, just so we can kind of get a better mental picture of where these things are at. And in the end, if the will of the board is this isn't a priority, then that's the message that I'll take back to the city council. So again, right now, this is just kind of in the exploratory stage, but I'm the reason why it ended up here. Anybody else have anything else they would like to speak to regarding that?
I've heard plenty about the need for security gates, and my understanding is there's been an increase in thefts at the harbor, primarily Bar Harbor, north. And I think that depending on where you're tied up, there's some areas of the harbor that are not watched as well because they're more of a day boat, not live about ports. So you probably see more activity, and I think there are some vessels in the harbor, rumor has it, where some inappropriate behavior takes place. I don't know how well that's monitored. I know in the past I've made calls to the police department to look into some suspicious activity on boats. But I've heard about the need for security gates. I understand it. With regards to possibly hole in the wall at Canoodson Cove, I feel that issues at those harbors are primarily from other boats passing through or using those harbors, not traffic down the ramp from within the city. Just my comments.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything?
So I've had a fuel tank stolen out of my boat that the fuel tank was unlocked for less than 5 minutes and it was stolen in broad daylight. So like even if, because if you put in locked gates, because it's a working harbor, that gate has to be open during the day. Because you have, like, if you had to key in and out as fishermen or loading gear and all kinds of stuff like that, it would be, I mean, I think people would be it'd be pretty hard to work down there if you had to, you know. So locking up at night, but I had a fuel tank stolen in broad daylight, right? It was unlocked less than 5 minutes, you know. And I've had several fuel tanks stolen, but no, cut hoses, do all kinds of stuff. So there is definitely an element of theft currently going on down there.
Anybody else? All right, let's move on to parking at the Port and Harbors office. What do you got?
Parking, well, the big misconception is that the harbor department owns the parking lot. We don't own the parking lot. Parking lots are owned by Public Works. So we really don't have any jurisdiction over them. You know, we've heard in the survey, one thing, a lot of people want parking to be better for harbor users. Now, I don't know, with it not being our parking lot, not our jurisdiction, we really can't do anything. That would be something maybe we would have to get with Public Works and try to figure out a plan. I know that everybody will say, well, why not just have the harbor take over the parking lots? If we take over the parking lots, then we're responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep of them and taking care of the expense of them as well.
Okay.
So it's always been let Public Works deal with that because we don't wanna have to pay for them. Because we can't pay for our harbor right now. Why do we wanna take over a parking lot that we ain't gonna be able to pay for either? So I don't know if we could get with Public Works and work out some kind of plan for different parking spaces. I don't know if we could do a parking pass for reserve mortgage users. There's a lot of things to dig into there. I'd like to talk to other harbors and see what they do and how they deal with it, if they have some kind of system. But it all comes down to, they're really not our parking lots, so we really don't have a lot to say in it.
They're public parking lots. The general public can use them. And, you know, that means everyone. So, I mean, it's frustrating, especially at Bar Harbor, the parking there, because there's a business across the street from the parking lot that a lot of their employees park in our lot because they don't have sufficient parking for their own business and their employees. And, you know, and it's frustrating even to us sometimes because, man, if you aren't there, if you don't pull into the lot before 7:45 in the morning, you aren't going to get a spot. Even us, you know, I pull in at 10 minutes to 8. Yeah. Some days it's full. There's nowhere to park. You know, so it's frustrating for us too. But you know, when I've spoken with you know, with Mark Hilson when he was still the Public Works Director, I mean, he said they're public parking lots. They're there for everyone, and you know, so it's a problem. That doesn't have an easy answer.
It's irritating for me, having 4 vans taking up half that one lot. You know who I'm talking about. Yeah. It's a long-term parking down at Bar Harbor by the grid. And we got a new business that came in there, been there a year now. And he owned 4 or 5 vans. And they just take up the half of the 12 stalls.
It does sound hard to, I don't know what we do or what can be implemented if it's a public parking lot. Sounds like a scenario where whatever the outcome is, you're gonna have an unhappy audience. If it became part of the harbor operations, then you've got how do we fund it to maintain it? And if you restrict the parking, then I would imagine that Public Works is gonna be hearing from the public saying, why did we lose X number of parking spaces? So I don't know. Do you think a discussion with Public Works?
It can't hurt.
Okay, I don't know. It just sounds like there's not enough parking spaces and somebody's gonna get left out in the cold one way or another. Go ahead.
The little lot by Kay's Kitchen, is that Public Works also?
Yeah.
And if that building went and we redid our gangway, that'd be all Public Works.
Public Works, yeah.
Okay.
We could ask for a reserved for Russell space, but I'm not sure if that's.
I don't know if that.
I don't know if that's gonna work. How about the Bar Harbor building update? Well, I actually looked into this today. It's not on the National Historic Registry.
We're not, I thought, yes.
We're talking about the old Kay's Kitchen, obviously.
Kay's.
Yeah, okay, it's not on the National Historic Registry like somebody had mentioned. The asbestos has been remediated. There's an additional contaminant inspection that needs to happen. And then we need to find the funding to dispose of it, but that's going to be a public works project, not, even though it's on our agenda, this is not a harbor or a port item, this is a public works item. So, but I know when I heard that, I was kind of freaked out that how could somebody put a building on the, historic registry that they don't even own, but that was not correct information. It'll go away at such time when it's been fully remediated, signed off on, and the city can find some cash to knock it down. I do have a question I would ask, I guess, the manager. Because I was asked tonight before the meeting, that will be demolished and carted away in-house. We're gonna do that ourselves. Is that the intent?
That's the intent. If we're able to do so, and if the inspection report comes in that we're under the percentage of contaminant material that can be disposed in our landfill, then our streets department will be able to go in and remove it and landfill it here. The other issue we have, I know we talked about using some of the riprap to build it up rather than replacing the piers, but that's another Corps of Engineers issue. I think somebody saw a seal in the water and determined it was wildlife habitat.
I thought that wasn't that resolved? Wasn't the
I
Army
think
Corps?
so, yeah, and so we
What-
just have to finish that whole process. So the goal is to be able to put the riprap in there, but I know we'll have to get the inspection reports done because otherwise we have to replace the entire pier. It can't be used as a parking lot.
That was the intent, was to get it filled so that we could use it for that, instead of having to go in there and do piles, so. Okay, thank you.
Is there actually a plan on the books for the design? If it's demolished and
No, the first phase, all we have is the demolition and removal and making it safe again. The actual parking lot design, our public works department will likely do that, our engineers locally, in order to get more parking out.
I was just curious if the trestle was gonna be removed as part of the project. That hasn't been decided yet.
Yeah, that, I don't know for sure, but that one.
That would be my
recommendation.
recommendation.
I thought Mr. Hilson, I think back in the day, I think that was going away.
Yeah.
I believe, right?
My understanding was everything was coming out.
Yeah.
And we would fill it in. So.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to reconfigure a ramp. From the top of the parking lot to get down to the floats.
Right.
So, yeah.
And that would be the harbor's portion of the right? That would be the harbor portion, and the lot would be the public works portion, right? Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Crossing guards.
I forget what the question was about the crossing guards that you had.
I think it was, that was my agenda item. I thought, and maybe tonight's not the night because it's been a long night, but a general discussion on basically crossing guards. I know there's a lot of public comments and stuff because in the shoulder season, it's hard to fill the positions and have that in there. But I think what I wanted to talk about is, and this is gonna be a delve into like maybe a broader city issue besides, just ports and harbors a little bit, but I've just watched, over the years and how poorly, like the cruise ship guests and stuff treat these people and cross in front of them, will jump over the rope and go like that and not listen to them. And I think what kind of drove it home was one day I was down at the four-way intersection where you have the two crossing guards down on Main Street. And they went to the side and someone started crossing when they weren't supposed to. And they're telling them not to cross and stuff. And that person ignored them and crossed anyway. And there was a cop car sitting there waiting to go right there at the stop sign, and they did nothing, so this person totally disobeyed the crossing guard, and that cop didn't even faze him, like nothing happened.
Wasn't an issue.
Wasn't an issue. And so I'm wondering, is there consequences? Like, do our crossing guards have any legal authority, and is there a potential fine or city ordinance that says, like, if you disobey one of the crossing guards, that you can get there's some teeth to that they can get a $500 fine or something for
Currently,
disobeying?
there's nothing, our crossing guards, report that, you know, are manned, you know, spots everyone's used to seeing them, don't have that authority to give tickets. You know, if cars run past, they try to get license plates and they will call those license plates in. Yeah, it's discouraging to see that, you know, you witnessed someone jaywalking right in, I mean, that's jaywalking if they're walking in the way and instructed not to, that, you know, the cops didn't call them. I don't know what kind of teeth the cops would have for giving that kind of ticket either. Yeah, our staff does not have that authority.
Well, let me ask you, Eric, so crossing guards was your item, vehicle, buses, and traffic, who put that on the agenda?
Can I have back one, can I ask a question?
Yeah, yes, absolutely, go ahead. I'm not-
This is about crossing guards. Has anybody ever looked at farming this duty out? Hiring a company to take it off our plate?
Not officially, it's come up and the jumped to conclusion usually is it would cost more to farm it out, but I don't think there's been anything formally done. Go ahead, Manager Walsh.
Councilor Flora, we actually did, that was one of the recommendations of the counselors before last season, I think. And we actually did look at possibly going with another security company. The cost was exorbitant. I can tell you, even for us to look for that, it was much higher than what we do with port security staff. Number two, the people who can do citations are police officers. So that would mean increasing patrols downtown. And I think we estimated to be at $100,000 for the summer if we were really to saturate ticket writing officers downtown. And then we looked at on the outsourced contractors. I'll give an example. During the Blueberry Festival, nobody was available for security. There was 0 contractors available because they have trouble staffing. So it's really a big staffing problem in Ketchikan. If Craig was able to hire an extra 15 people that he was budgeted for in the summer, that would help a lot, but we can't get enough people to take those jobs. So we did look at doing some sort of contract work, even when we were running short, and even those companies didn't have enough employees.
They wouldn't be qualified anyway to give a ticket.
They couldn't give a ticket.
Right.
They would just perform the same duties as our security guards. So, and if our officers, I've actually seen officers stop people that they witnessed jaywalking. I happened upon that and, you know, gave them a warning and let them know that they could be, I don't know what he told them, but they got back on the sidewalk. He was very friendly about it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, I don't know, I'd like to see some, you know, some sort of, I guess the question is like, is it, if someone disobeys one of the, like it's just jaywalking, it's the same as if they walked outside of a crosswalk. If they disobey, that's not something worse if there's a crossing guard saying no. It's possible that, like, maybe, I mean, does anyone think there's a need for an upgrade of the ordinances to, like, I know you can't give them ticket writing authority, but maybe having some ordinances to support them a little bit more so that if a cop happens to witness it, there's a little more consequences for.
To be honest, I've heard this example a few times that passengers that disembark, they kind of treat our downtown like Disneyland. Like it's supposed to be an open street and you can just walk in the middle. They don't realize this is a functioning, working town on the port, that this is not Disneyland. You can't just wander in the middle of the street and watch the parade. But honestly, the best solution for us, and we're going to meet with DOT again, is to get more ropes and bollards where we need them. Because really, getting the traffic to the crossing points, somebody has to physically lift up their leg and go over a rope. That's going to deter them from just jaywalking. And so honestly, that's going to be the biggest issue for us, is meeting with DOT. And they've been a lot more receptive in some of our requests lately, so we're hoping to go back to them again. getting the traffic direction and the traffic flow managed is really the best solution, rather than having more people and trying to fine and prosecute and, you know, go through that process. It's really getting the traffic flow patterns down. That helps.
Thank you.
Anything else that you want to talk about on them?
I think that's.
Vehicle, buses and traffic.
Yeah, you know, I know the city has worked on a traffic plan. We don't have anything port specific, to offer to the board on that. Again, that's being done, or has been done by Public Works, and the manager's office. But Ports and Harbors Port is not that involved in that planning. You know, once it's off the port, it's out of our jurisdiction.
Right.
So I don't really have much to offer to that.
No, I agree. Once they're off the port, it's a public safety issue. You wanted to add something on that?
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep talking tonight.
Yeah.
Get all of it out. Our tourism, we have a new tourism manager, Lori Boyza, who just started with us a couple of months ago, and actually looking at that traffic management is one of her tasks for next season, of how we can handle it. It could be things that we're maybe shutting down certain streets, or we're changing our traffic flow. I don't know what that looks like yet, but that is one of the tasks that she's looking at next season, because as Dan mentioned, their job is just get them off the port. And then it's our job to get them somewhere from there. So hopefully now that we have a person in place who can actually take this task on, we'll be able to have some better solutions or proposals for the council.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to the director's report.
The director's report is in part of your packet. It's kind of short and sweet this month. There's hasn't been a whole lot going on. The port facilities are officially closed for the season. Maintenance staff's been working on draining water lines on the port, getting the facilities winterized, so we don't have freeze damage later in the winter when the cold weather hits. We are in the process of ordering the Yokohama fenders for berth 4. I mentioned last meeting that in my discussions with Ketchikan Dock Company that they wanted the 8-foot diameter fenders upgrade over the current 6-foot ones that came when berth 4 was built. They weren't happy about us not willing to upgrade those, but they did agree to pay the difference. So we are going to install 8-foot fenders. I think there's going to be 8 by 14 foot is what we're going to be ordering up for berth 4. Also on berth 4, Ketchikan Dock Company is taking their barge, the berth 4 barge, out here in the next few weeks to go into the yard for its on its service schedule. So it will be out for most of the winter and come back in the spring. On the harbor side, we still see a fair bit of activity. The commercial dive fleet is operating in the area. Reserve moorage, which was due in October, build out in October, it was due. There have been multiple stalls canceled, which we've quickly offered back out to vessels on the wait list. And we continue to operate at 100% capacity for vessels greater than 32 feet. Anything else to add there, change?
Our new CSR,
Oh, yeah.
Heidi Porter, she started 2 weeks ago, and she is slid right in and is doing an amazing job. So we're very happy with her. We're fully staffed and hope to be for a long time.
Yeah. Any questions in regards to the report? Sandy, any future agenda items?
I have one, I'd like to put on the agenda for you guys for next meeting of the 2024 cruise ship berthing calendar. We got that
a couple of weeks ago from Southeast Stevedoring. Craig Bisson met with them today to discuss their initial calendar. It's another very busy year, a few less ship stops, but more people because the ships are bigger. More ships at anchor, going to be lightering next summer. Craig's still here. There's 27 days where we have ships lightering next summer.
Yeah, we knocked that down a little bit this morning, so it's like 22.
22, okay.
How's that compare to this year? How many was it? Do you remember?
There was only about 5 days where they lightered all day. We did have where we'd have a ship on anchor, and then a ship on one would leave, and the ship on anchor would pour into two. So we got the head tax on those, full head tax. So there's probably about 27 days this summer where we did have lightering operations, but just not.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that many more boats, we lose the head tax?
No, because we're getting more people. There can be 10 less stops, I think, 10 less physical stops, but the ships are getting bigger, so there's more people. So,
But if they anchor out and lighter in, we still get.
Well, we get we don't get the full head tax. You know, if we only get the full head tax if they come in and tie to the port, and you know, it's 11.
I think it's $9 per CP 11, or is it $7?
I think it's $7. $7 if they lighter.
Okay.
Into the dock. Okay. And 11 if they tie to the dock.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other future agenda items? Board member comments, Lee?
Oh, I think it's great that everybody turned out today to speak their mind, get their input heard. It's nice to see people involved.
Yeah, same thing. I'm glad all the public showed up. It'd be nice somehow if the process was stretched out so they, you know, the public would maybe feel a little more involved in, you know, instead of this seeming to be sprung on everybody and, you know, suddenly having to say something before it's too late. But I don't know how we can make that happen, but you know, it costs money to advertise these issues, but it would be nice if it wasn't quite as rough a landing as dealing with the entire topic just tonight. But it was good that everyone came and shared what they had to say about it. So I appreciate all the public coming.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for all the people that came and made comments. And as always, thank you to staff, May, for getting us all the info that we need. Thank you.
I'll echo that. Thanks for the public for turning out. And I do think that things seem to be getting a little rushed now that we're getting close to making a move on this harbor rate study. And tonight we got a lot of comments, a lot of good points were brought up that I think we need to dig into and digest. But thank you all for coming out. Delilah, thank you very much for being here, and staff, thank you.
Good to be working with you all again. Really glad I was able to make it this evening, get all the public comments. Yeah, thank you, staff. Thank you, guys. Everyone that came.
Yeah, thank you everyone in the public that showed up tonight. It's really good that when people from the public show up at these meetings. Would like to say that, you know, we meet every month, so it'd be nice to people come and say hi every once in a while too, or talk about some of the other subjects that we talk about, the issues that happen in the port. Thank you, staff, and thank you, May.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the staff. There's a lot goes on that people don't see. But I'd like the public to know that you are heard. I mean, we just don't sit up here and have you turned off. And all we can be as an advisory board, we pass our thoughts on to the city council and they make the decision. So you know the next step in the process. And that's what I would suggest you do. So, December 12th.
Yes.
So, thank you.
Well, yeah, that's good advice. What,
Do we want to talk about changing our next meeting?
Oh, right. Because the city council, thank you for reminding me, because the city council meeting's on the 12th, would you guys be amenable to moving our meeting up to the first Tuesday, which would be the 5th of December? Does that,
Should I make a motion to that effect?
I don't think we need to make a motion for it. Can we just?
Yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah. Can we, yeah, can you
Fifth.
just- Okay, so this board will meet on the 5th.
So it'll be the 5th of next month.
Yes. Staff will bring back what the next iteration of where they're at with the rate proposal based upon the input from the public and the surveys.
Makes sense.
And then whatever the will of this board is the message that I deliver to the city council 12th.
5th.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for coming out tonight. I appreciate it. These are your harbors. And these are your neighbors that are volunteering their time and their evening every now and then to help work this out. I agree. It seems like it's fast. In discussions with staff, first of all, the meeting of the 12th is when the city council will take this up. I have no predictions right now because we haven't had that meeting yet. It's the meeting of the 12th is the next step in the process for the city council. That doesn't mean it's going to be settled. In discussions that I had with the manager, this rate increase, if there is a rate increase and whatever it ends up looking like, may not occur till April. Is that the discussion we had, Ms. Walsh? Right? So there is time yet. The clock hasn't run out. And everybody, please, that was here tonight, come back, tell your friends, come back to the meeting of the 5th. And with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
We're out. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Right, understand there.
Oh, no, not at all. No, not at all. That was, that's the kindest part of my life.
Well, then I really should apologize.
Making it kill the bikes.
Well, see, that was interesting.
The receiver?
Yeah.
Yeah,